Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Well, I finally got an opportunity to play Dragon Age the Veilguard. You know, originally I was not going to do an impressions video. I was just going to play all the way through the game and give you our review at the end. But over and over and over and over and over again, when people come into my chat, they're asking me, well, what do you think? What are your impressions so far? So I feel like it'd probably be nice, instead of me repeating the same spill over and over again, that I just put up a video and say, hey, watch the video if you want to see that information. So here we are. I think I'll do one of these now, which is basically at the 10-hour mark for me at the game. And then I'll probably do another one at maybe the 30-hour mark to give you my impressions at that point. And then I'll deliver a final review on the game. But just to start right off, to make it clear, thus far, I am having a good time. I'm not at the point where I want to chuck the game out the window. I feel like, oh man, this is just an absolute disrespect to everything that came before, etc., etc. I'm not wowed by it, but I'm not going crazy about it either. So with that, let's go ahead and get into my thoughts, starting with what I liked about the experience. So, character creator was much better than I thought it would be. I'm on record saying I'm not really impressed with a lot of the character models we have seen for this game thus far, and I thought it was telling that Bioware did not release its character creator up front. And so that made me think, you know what, when people actually get this in their hands, maybe it's really not going to live up to what was spoken about in the game trailers article. But honestly, I had a great time in character creation. I think we spent about an hour and a half in it. Really interesting scar options, paint options, tattoos. Like, I felt like I had a lot of different cool ways to customize a character. We've already talked extensively about the hair and how much better it looks compared to Inquisition and frankly just about any other game on the market. So altogether, I'm really happy with the character I put together. And for the first time in my live stream career, on multiple occasions, people have come in my chat and said, whoa, I really like the way your character looks. You did a good job, which, you know, kind of makes me feel good. Second thing I really like is Solas thus far is fantastic. I've had the opportunity to have a couple of conversations with him and learn some more about his revolt, things of that nature. I feel like he looks fantastic. Voice acting is on point. The dialogue, for the most part, I feel like has been on point with him. The dialogue and conversations you have with Solas are absolutely a high point of the game thus far. I'm hoping that we get a lot more of them. Even before this game came out, I already said I felt like the environments were incredible, and frankly, they're even more incredible walking around through them. The environments are absolutely a high point of the game. The art that's involved with them is just absolutely fantastic. I went through about 4 or 5 different areas, and just all of them were striking in their own way. Really great stuff. Bioware did a fantastic job in this area. There are some reviews that basically said you never get to make real decisions until the end of the game. Already, I don't feel like that's true, but take that with a grain of salt, because I've only been able to make the decisions. It's not clear whether or not those decisions are going to have any long-standing or significant impacts, but of course, it's already been talked about extensively that there will be instances where you can choose what party member is going to come with you into the heat of battle and what party members are going to stay behind, and that can cause them to become injured or have different impacts on their mechanics. So I've already experienced that, and I thought that was really interesting. I had Harding come with me into the thick of the fray, and she looked beat up and bruised for an extended period of time. In fact, I think she still looks that way. Some people in my chat were asking, like, hey, is she gonna look all messed up for the duration of the game? How long is this gonna last? So I definitely enjoyed that. And there was another instance where we cleared out an area, and then at the end we found someone that we felt like had done some terrible things to some people who were under his command. And since I was part of the Grey Warden faction, I had the option actually to leave him with the Grey Wardens, or I could kill him, do some other things. I felt like that was really cool. I chose to, let the Grey Wardens take him, and it seemed like it was hinted that I might see him at a later point. So I'm interested to find out, okay, does that decision have actual ramifications? But to me, stuff like that is cool. Stuff like that, it's not, quite high level to the point of some of the other major decisions that we've had in other Dragon Age games. But it definitely scratches that itch as far as making me feel like I have some agency in the game. So I'm hoping we get more decisions like that. The missions are much larger than I thought they would be. Of course, Bioware mentioned that this game was not going to be open world and that it was going to be much more mission based. And when they said that, I was thinking along the lines of Mass Effect 2, which is kind of a run in 30, maybe 45 minutes, do what you got to do, and then run out. Very, very quick hit stuff. That hasn't been the case thus far. Of course, I'm doing missions right now that have me recruit different party members. And so maybe it'll be different when it's more general missions, but these missions have been taking an extended period of time. It's very, very large areas with a ton of stuff for you to pick up and loot and puzzles for you to solve while you're going through them. And so I thought that was interesting. And I do kind of like it, at least up to this point. Maybe it's going to wear me down around hour 30, but at this time I like that some of these encounters, especially to get the party members, they're so extensive. It gives you an opportunity to learn more about these party members before you even pick them up. Thus far, from my experience, the game is consistent with the lore. I haven't had any instances where I was like, whoa, this is a major, major retcon of what we had before. The only thing that threw me off, and I feel comfortable talking about it because this was already part of the public discourse before the game came out, is in your first conversation with Solas, he mentions that he abhors blood magic and he hates it. And I was like, whoa, that's a retcon for sure, because in Inquisition, Solas specifically mentions that blood magic is just a tool and that the hype around it basically is overblown. And many people in my chat agreed with me that that dialogue was not consistent with the Solas that we know. But to me, that's kind of a small change. And again, outside of that, there's been nothing where I was like, hey, this really, really collides with the lore that has been established. So as a longtime Dragon Age fan and a fan of the lore that has been established, I'm happy at this point. I'm really enjoying the gear system so far. It has a setup where if you get the same type of gear, you automatically upgrade it. So there is no crafting, but you can upgrade your equipment and you can enchant it. Thus far, I feel like it works well. I think the system, in order to be able to change the look of your gear, is really, really cool. I'm the type of player, I love making all of my team uniform. So it was nice making sure that they all had a very, very similar look. Really cool stuff. And I'm looking forward to delving more into it, finding out all of the different crazy outfits that are available to us so that I can use them on my team. And then the last surprising note that I would make is that thus far, I haven't had issues with the music. I'm on record as saying the main theme is mediocre, and I stand on that. But interestingly, a lot of these songs are completely different from each other. So unlike some of the previous Dragon Age soundtracks, where it kind of feels like the main theme is the anchor, and then most of the songs you hear kind of sprout off of that in one way or another, I gotta be honest with you, I kind of feel like the soundtrack, it almost sounds like it's created by different people. Like different teams worked on different tracks. It doesn't sound uniform to me, but that creates a situation where some of the songs I really, really like. Most especially, there's a track that played while I was at Antiva for the first time that was really cool. It was kind of light, it was kind of chippery, but I still felt like, hey, this is actually kind of a bop. I'm enjoying this while I'm listening to the dialogue, so that aspect of it is cool. All right. Those are all the things that I've liked and enjoyed about Veilguard. So now let's get into the things that I'm not liking so far about my experience. Again, I want to be clear, at this time, I'm relatively neutral on the game. So I'm not in a situation where this list of dislikes has caused me to decide, you know what, I can't stand this game, or I feel like this game is going to be trash. Like, I'm at this point, I'm still keeping a completely open mind, and I'm just going through the experience and I'll see what the game gives me. So first on the list, I don't like that you cannot side with Solas at the very beginning. I kind of went off about this on my stream, and Kayla Elizabeth was in the chat, and she kind of walked me back from the plank. And you know, thinking back through it, it does make sense that the game doesn't allow you to side right off the bat with someone who's clearly doing something so extreme. And so my hope now is that we'll be able to get to a point where we can say, hey, I do feel like Solas is right, and I want to help him in whatever way I can. But maybe we just have to build up to that point. I am, in my mind, I always wanted to be able to side with Solas from the very beginning, and so it was disappointing to feel like at least that's not the case. But I get it. I get that probably, from a story standpoint, considering your character does not necessarily know Solas, it makes sense that that's not really possible. I also feel like the tone of the overall game is way too light. Obviously, this has been brought up as a point of contention multiple times, even before it came out, that everything looks much lighter than previous Dragon Age games. And in the first 10 hours, I absolutely agree with that. I think part of the problem is the party members. The 3 party members you get up front, Nev, Harding, and Ballara, they all in their own way come off as the group who's like, hey, you know, we're not going to be too serious about this, etc., etc. And it adds to the overall lighter tone, and I feel like it's kind of the wrong move. There was a sequence during our live stream where we encountered the Darkspawn for the first time, and it was just absolutely magnificent. It was dark, it was gruesome, it was brutal. It was everything that I know Dragon Age to be, and there were multiple people throughout my chat saying, whoa, this is great. This is what we expect from Dragon Age, etc., etc. And it was so different from just about everything else I experienced in that first 10 hours. So it's weird. It seems like a lot of the game is too light, but at the same time, the developers have demonstrated that they're fully capable of creating that darker experience that a lot of previous Dragon Age fans are looking for and would appreciate. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that we get going further into the game. On that same note, another criticism we've talked about is that it feels like this game wants to push everybody into being likable and heroic. I'm definitely feeling that now. For my dialogue options, I'm sticking with comedic, because I already saw the review saying Stern is just going to disappoint you over and over again because it's extremely difficult to be dislikable and certainly not evil. And so I'm like, I might as well lean into the way the developers want you to play anyway to see if that's actually a good experience. But even outside of that, I feel like some of the different groups you're dealing with are portrayed in a more heroic fashion than they should be. Like, I've done a mission with the Antivan Crows. Again, I'm only 10 hours in, so maybe this is going to change over time. But in all 3 of the first Dragon Age games, the Antivan Crows are basically portrayed as bad people. They're portrayed as assassins, merciless, kill everybody. These guys are the villains. In fact, in the first game, you literally learn about how they steal children and raise them to become assassins to do their bidding, right? Like, these are not the good guys. But in Veilguard, we meet the leaders of the Antivan Crows, and it's basically portrayed as this beleaguered family, you know, who's at the mercy of the Cunari. And I can already tell there's the setup where I need to go help them and stand with them because, these are the people who should really have control of Antiva. And I'm like, is there going to be any acknowledgement of who these people really are and what they stand for? Like, I can completely understand the game saying these are terrible people who have done these awful things, but you need to align with them anyway because the stakes are so high. I'm totally fine with that. I'm good with that. That's actually very consistent with what Dragon Age has always been. But thus far, there's like no acknowledgement of who these people really are. So we'll see if that changes over time. I've mentioned before that I felt like the party members, at least that you get up front, are too light. But even more importantly than that, your direct dialogue with party members is kind of cringe. It's definitely cringe. I'm not of the same opinion as what I've heard from other people that the dialogue across the board is cringe. I feel like a lot of the main story stuff has been ranged from decent to flat out excellent. Main story, I've been okay. But your dialogue directly with your party members, it definitely feels like the party member is talking to a child. Even in instances where he's speaking to more even party members, like Balara comes off as a child. She almost comes off as a teen. But even when conversating with like Harding or Nev, I don't know, the conversation just doesn't feel as mature or adult as I feel like it should. And I'm hoping that that's going to improve as we go along, but I don't necessarily have high hopes. It feels like this is just a general tone that they're trying to strike. But hopefully, again, the main story and the dialogue there, the dialogue continues to hold up. Another issue, since we're talking about the story, the main villains are unimpressive thus far. So Elgar'nan and Gillenane are supposed to be the main antagonists that you're dealing with. We got a couple of scenes where we heard them talk, and hate to keep using the word. I know some of y'all hate when this is brought up, but I just got to keep it a ban, all right? It sounded Pixar. It sounded Disney. It sounded literally like a mustache-twirling Disney villain. To take it a step further, again, for those who have played the previous games, this feels like Corypheus all over again. It feels again like a villain who has, or in this case, villains who have fantastic backstories, and there's every reason why it should be fantastic going up against them, but it falls flat because they're just not developed well enough, and they just don't have enough good dialogue. Next, let's talk about combat. For the most of my 10 hours, I was actually neutral on combat, but definitely right towards the end, I'm getting to the point that I feel like it's a chore. And the reason I feel like it's a chore is because the enemies seem very, very spongy, and it's taking way longer than I feel like it should to get through them sometimes. Now, let me just be honest right off the bat. Part of this probably is a skill issue. All right, I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes about that at all. I'm not necessarily great at real-time games. It's definitely not my thing, so I'm stepping a little bit out of my comfort zone with this. And even for a real-time game, Veilguard seems very, very fast-paced. Like, you really, really got to be on your P's and Q's to avoid damage and make sure you understand what's going on. And the camera does not help you at all. It is such a chore trying to make sure the camera is positioned properly so that you understand what's actually going on in the battlefield. But bottom line, that's not the real issue. And again, I don't feel like my skill level is a real issue. I think the enemies are just too spongy. They're too spongy, and it makes combat take longer than what it should. And when I say spongy, I don't just mean in terms of how much damage they can take. Like, that's more so an issue with some of the bosses where it feels like whittling down the health takes forever. Some of these enemies that you're facing on a regular basis can disappear and then go to another location. And that means dealing with them takes significantly longer than it actually should. And so it extends your combat time in a way that personally I find annoying, or at least I'm starting to find annoying. But again, I'm very early in the game. I don't have my specialization yet. So at some point, I'm going to get a nice little power jump, I assume. And then we'll see, hopefully around that 20-25 hour mark. Okay, is combat still a chore now that my builds are together and I really understand what it is that I'm doing? One other thing that I really don't like about combat is how it handles party members. So, of course, you don't have direct access to your party members, but on top of that, all of your party members' abilities are on the same cooldown timer, meaning that, all right, if I use one of Nev's abilities, all of her other abilities are unavailable. You can't just, string cast 3 of her abilities back to back to back. So it even adds more to feeling like you don't really have people with you in combat. What you have is an additional power on your hotbar, right? And then when that timer expires, all right, you have 3 abilities available to you and you pick one, and then you've got to wait 20-30 seconds until it's available again. I hate that system. I hate that system. I feel like it reinforces even more that your party members don't have real autonomy during combat. It's really, really annoying. Maybe that'll change, because I see that there are a lot of different upgrades that will expand how these powers work and give my party members more flexibility. But right now at this time, does not feel good at all. And then, since we're on the subject of combat, I will reinforce once again, enemy designs are unimpressive. Unless that enemy is human, because the armors are amazing. So a human type character who has the armor on, things of that nature, they look great. But the demons, the dark spawns, they all look unimpressive. They look goofy. Supposedly there's going to be a story reason for it. I doubt whatever that reason is going to be enough to make up for this art direction. I just feel like it was the wrong move. The dark spawn look like Husk out of Mass Effect, which it doesn't make any sense considering where they started. And that's it. Those are my thoughts so far on Dragon Age the Veilguard. Again, at this time, I'm neutral and I'm having a good time with the game. It's a fun game thus far through 10 hours. Is it a good game? Is it up to the same standard that we would expect from previous Dragon Age games? I don't have enough information yet to give you a direct yay or nay, but I will definitely keep you in the loop on my thoughts. Again, we'll do this video once again at the 20-25 hour mark, somewhere in there, and I'll give you a status update on where I'm standing, and then I'll give you a full review. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.